Welcome back to Arcadian Insight. It is episode number 24, and today is Thursday, July 11th, 2019. I am Matt Franceschi, and joining me today I have Adam Wolf, Ben Bachman, Dave Mead, and Josh McNeil. Trending news today, we're going to be talking about EA has said that they are struggling with the perception that they are the bad guys. The Nintendo Switch Lite has recently been announced, and Leonard Boyarsky, the creative director of Obsidian, has recently stated in an interview that their new game, The Outer Worlds, will be political, but will not be politically charged. But the main topic today, we're going to be talking solely about the importance of replayability. The reason I kind of came up with this and thought that this would be a good topic is that we've discussed previously how the games as a service model has increased the lifespan of games, and how every gaming company seems to want you to play their games for years and years. This got me thinking a lot about replayability. If you're going to play the same game for years, it better be good, and it better keep you entertained for a long time. But replayability isn't just a factor for online multiplayer games. It also exists in standalone single-player games. So I thought a good place to start for this would just be to just dive in on how important is replayability to you when deciding whether or not to purchase a product.
Replayability to me, I think, is honestly the number one thing I look for in a game. Honestly, right now, I think I mentioned it briefly when we were talking when Eggshell was on the show. Actually, my games of the past 5 years that I had the most fun with, not necessarily the best top 3 games that I've ever played, but the most hours I've spent playing them. I think too often in the current gaming landscape, I've been burned on taking a chance on something that might not have a lot of replayability, like an RPG with like a seemingly fleshed out story, or anything, I don't know, like more arcadey, like where you're expected really just to play through one time. Now it's everything to me. If it's got to have replayability, I got to be able to sink obscene amounts of hours into the game, whether that's for me like Total War or a MOBA like HOTS or League of Legends, even some of the smaller like indie games like Faster Than Light, things like that, something with super high replayability that's every time you jump into it you're getting something different. Because I find that games right now they've been lacking in keeping me engaged in their stories and their worlds at times, so I feel like I need this outside factor, some kind of catch to keep me on the replayability aspect of the game.
Yeah, for me, I get what you're saying there, Wolf. I think that we gotta like define what we mean by replayability, because to me, like there's the game where you can replay it like directly after you've done it, but there's a lot of games also that like have a good story that you may play a year later or a couple years later just to relive that. So I think that not that we have to define it, but I think it's good to talk about that these story-based games that we come back, for instance, personally for me, the story-based games like the Final Fantasy series, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, all old school JRPGs. Like I come back to those for the story, for the soundtrack, for the nostalgia. But I don't play them and then I'm like, oh well, let's play them because now they have this. The replayability is built in because you can do different things. You can go in the story goes in different directions. You can make decisions that change the story. So that has changed a lot with like The Witcher or Skyrim or et cetera, et cetera.
There's a lot of avenues that you can go off here, and Maddie and I had a bit of a Twitter discussion about it the other day, and he had brought up in a tweet Resident Evil 2, the remake. So you have a game like Skyrim that you can play. You're playing the same game, right? But you're building a character differently around the same game. So replayability can be looked at in umpteen different ways. Like what you're saying with the RPG. You're playing the same game. You may try this thing differently here or that thing, or with the FF series you add a different party member, or you do a solo run, whatever you're still replaying the game, but you're playing the same game. And that's the one thing that I think I might disagree with Matt on a little bit is like, okay, you knew what you were getting into in a Resident Evil remake. It's a remake. But you can replay the game 5 times, right? I looked into it a little more. So yeah, you have deviation and cutscenes, whatever. But one conversation we had way back on the same issue is that where all the items are, where the enemies are. So there's a little less charm in the second, third, fourth, whatever, how many playthroughs you go through. But they are, to go along with what Ben's saying, it's built in, like they gave you different cutscenes, and then when you do the 4 campaigns, you get that Marine, whatever his name was. I never played either the original or the remake, but you get the Marine, and then you get like the Tofu playthrough, and I don't know how much the Tofu playthrough varies from the 4 or 5 other campaigns.
Yeah.
But we did agree on that the game was too expensive either.
Yeah.
Besides the point.
That's what I was going to say. That's like why I was really harping on the Resident Evil 2 remake. I think like it was a great remake. Everybody loved it. But if that game would have been like something like $30, I think I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right.
But a 60, like I probably played that game for about 8 hours. And I played through the first playthrough as Leon. It was great. And then I tried to play again. I think it was like Claire, maybe Claire A you play second. You might even have the option of Claire A or Claire B. I got through the mansion, which was my favorite part of the game. Everything after the mansion I thought was very lacking. Even in the Leon A playthrough, I thought it just wasn't that great. So once I got out of the mansion as Claire, I was just like, what am I even doing? The mansion wasn't even fun the second time through. There's no way I'm going to like the second part that I hated as Leon. So I got rid of it. I uninstalled, and I've just never played it again.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with the 60 bones. I mean, they're gonna make it $60 because there's fanboys who are gonna pay for that, and they're going for the nostalgia, and they're going for it, and they're gonna play that shit, all aspects of it, like you were saying, McNeil. So that's why it's $60 because they know that they can get away with it.
Was it a good game? Yeah. Was the original a good game? Yeah. Was it worth $60? No. But
no, I don't think so either.
Onto the replay thing.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game, but a bad product.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I can't speak to that. Didn't play it.
Price tag wise, that like when I think of a product, I think of like what value did I get like for the price that I paid, right? And I think when you merge those two together, I would say it was a bad product.
Mm-hmm.
We bring up these, like Divinity. There's so much in that game that you can literally, like, I played it one time the whole way through. I could go back and play it completely different again, and it'd be different. I'm generally going to the same main people for the same main story quests. But the way you go about that, and I think it comes back on the consumer to make it what they want it to be. They could play the game the same way they did the first time, but they're still getting a replay value out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wolf's playing Three Kingdoms for how many times now? You had, you told me you've had hundreds and hundreds of turns in that game, but it's obviously different for you each time, but you're playing the same game, so it, do you want a different storyline? Well, would you guys say that, like, if it seems like to me that everyone's saying that replayability is somewhat of an important factor when you are buying a game. I think it is for me as well. But would you say that it always is a really important factor, or is it just genre specific? Like, are there certain games or certain genres where you really don't care if there's replayability? I know for me personally, like, there are certain genres that I don't care, but
I think that with my favorite genre, JRPGs, if it's a good game, it's going to have replayability. I mean, it's not going to have it's the quality of the game, of the story, of the gameplay, that is going to bring me back to it, not any like different. It's just, if it's a quality story, just like a quality book, I'll reread it. That's for me personally.
I kind of want to elaborate what Ben was saying there. I know, right after what I said, you had brought up that you do enjoy replaying those older games, and that's how I kind of feel too. I'm talking about like the more recent releases of games, and that's why I put replayability at such a high priority. It's my number one, just for about any genre. It doesn't matter. I honestly, it probably excludes me from playing some genres of video games just because they generally lack replayability, just for the type of game that they are. And the reason I say that is, you're talking about these old, like Chrono Trigger and things like that. Their story, the story was already good enough to make you want to come back and play that game again, regardless of there being some kind of gimmicky factor, like in I don't want to call Total War Three Kingdoms a gimmicky game, but for me the gimmicky factor is I want to capture like every fucking general in the game and make them part of my team, and like every time I go about doing that a different way. It's like a gimmick. It's not actually, I guess it's part of the game, but it's not like the intended like story of like Chrono Trigger.
In Dynasty Warriors, with which we have a lot of experience with Dynasty Warriors, that was the same thing. We were just playing that shit to unlock different.
Yeah, that was essentially,
and that's a huge one. The replayability with that shit, we played that, like increase the difficulty, get different weapons, all kinds of shit.
But I mean, you wouldn't say that was would you say it was a great game?
No,
they were fun. They had a lot of replayability in certain aspects, but no, they weren't.
It was a great game for the time because we could play together.
You could sink a lot of time into
screen.
It. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
So there is a line that we're trying to tread here to say,
replayability. Well, I got you, Wolf. I'll join you guys. I'll join you guys in modern times here.
Come on over.
Yeah.
So, like, for somebody like Dave, would you go? You play WoW, right? Would you go back and do you have any sort of hype or excitement for Classic? Like, do you have any desire to go back and replay that stuff to, just for replay value? Let's just put it like that. I mean, Wolf, you're looking like, yeah, it was great. But I feel like you got a lot of nostalgia weighing in on that opinion, and like, we always use this word nostalgia. It is a strong emotion, It'll bring you back to stuff like you're saying, your JRPGs, regardless of time frame, or era of games. Do you, Dave, want to go replay dungeons and raids you've already done?
I think, like, in my head, I want to, because it's like nostalgic, but I have a big fear that once I go back and play it, I'm gonna be like, fuck this, I hate this game.
Yeah.
Because WoW 15 years ago was completely different than it is now, and like, back then, like, computers sucked, online games sucked, everything was shit. Now we're used to a higher standard, and I'm just worried that reverting back literally 15 years and playing like that style of MMORPG, I'm just gonna hate it. Because I'm not used to it anymore.
Like, you just brought up like a super awesome point that I want is like, WoW 15. When did it come out? 2007.
No, 2007. Yeah, it's 2000. It's 15-year anniversary this year, so 2004.
Okay, the internet was different then too.
Exactly.
And a lot of people give praise to WoW Classic because it forces you to be a community. It forces you to engage with other people. When the new WoW, the internet is newer. You have Twitter, you have social media, you have all these outlets where you can gain information, learn how to do things on YouTube, this, YouTube that. It was old then. You had to get with people and talk to people and learn the game through the game.
Yeah, I mean, if they could bring that back,
you can't.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah. Correct. Yes, you can't, because everything is known, everything's wikied.
Well, you have to say you wanted to get 40 people together for a raid. You had to keep in communication with 40 people in the game. Unless there was a forum somewhere. I didn't play it. I don't know. Maybe there was. But
people
now you just go, oh, what's your Twitter? I'll get at you when we start.
Yeah,
the
raid. Websites.
Oh,
yes,
every guild made a
website and Ventrilo.
I think WoW Classic will be good for people like Adam who want that nostalgia. But for the people who are really looking back and wanting that community just aren't going to get it. I feel like they're just going to get let down, you know?
Yeah, and like you made a really good point with that too, because like I was playing WoW literally like yesterday, and there was a guy in general chat was like, "Hey, like how do I do this, or where do I go to do this?" And the guy's like, "Fuck you, dude, go look it up." Like, you're being lazy. That's how people are now. I was like, "Holy shit!"
Wow.
Jeez, ass cheese.
But like that's how much it has changed. Like in 15 years ago, you ask a question and people would be like, "Oh yeah, sure, dude."
Yeah.
Do you want help?
Come with me. Let's go on a little adventure
Like, you
together.
would have
The
like, and then
XP.
10 minutes later, you would have a question. Somebody would help you. Now that's like, "Fuck you, you're lazy. Go look it up right now." Like, what's wrong with you? Why would you ask people?
Well, you're
And
right.
I was like, "Damn."
You're right there in one regard, and I don't know how they're going to do it exactly because it seems like, and I don't want to get too deep into this. We're talking about replayability, but to help bring you back into the Stone Age of gaming that we like to talk about, like WoW Classic and things like that. That game was set up a little different in that there was a community because it was forced upon you. You were interacting with the same people every day. If you got on there and started acting like a dick, people would remember that and they'd start acting like a dick to you. Like now there's like zero repercussion. You could like buy a brand new max level character pretty much and be like right back at, or buy a new name or whatever you got to do to change your persona per se.
It's kind of like, I'm trying to draw like parallels here. It's kind of like with me for like diet. Like it takes a lot of like the whole foods. This isn't gonna make any sense. Okay, so like old, I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Like old, it's convenience. You know what I mean? Like like you go to the convenience store. There's the fucking the honey bun. You grab that up. You're gonna eat that enough. You're gonna be dying in 10 years. But if you go get some Whole Foods, talk to your friends, he takes you to the mount place. You figure out you get your mount and stuff.
Are the honey buns WoW Classic? Or I'm confused.
What? No, the honey buns is new. It's convenient.
Oh, okay.
You go
It's
to the
bad
honey
for
bear
you.
to
It
buy the
makes you
honey
dumb.
buns, or what do you?
It destroys your body, your soul.
When I was talking about the products or the games in the genre that I really don't care about replayability, it's more like that art indie style, like the walking simulators. And I'm thinking here, like What Remains of Edith Finch, even a game like Gris. Like, they're about 5-hour long games, maybe even shorter, but I really don't need to replay those, right? Like they're $15. They're a one-time experience, a great product, and then I'm pretty much done with them. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but that's the one genre of games where I just don't need to play it again.
Well, the price
it's
weighs
cheap
in
and
with
it's
that too.
Exactly.
So yes. Considering everything, yes, certainly.
I understand
Fighting
the premise, yeah, but it's like I said earlier. That's why I just don't buy those games. I just there isn't the replayability.
Fighting games are like that for me. I'll go back and competitively play a fighting game. I don't go back to a fighting game to replay the game.
The story mode.
Half the time they're garbage. But but what I kind of cut Dave off after bringing him into the conversation, but like what keeps you going after 15 years going back to WoW on a daily basis? Is it the grind? Do you consider the grind the replayability there, or
it's the new? Oh, sorry, Dave. Sorry.
Well, it's a couple things. Like it's like the new, like a new continent, or like the progression of the story. Like I don't want to miss out on that. Like you always you always want to see the new shit and the new gameplay and the new mechanics and new items, blah blah blah. But at the same time, like I don't know, I'm one of those people. Like as much as I hate the grind, I like the grind. Because like you know what I mean. Because if you grind it out before someone else, you're like, look, I can fly and you can't. Like I don't know. There's like that feeling of like accomplishment when you like get things quicker than other people or whatever like that. I like that.
would you start a new character just to replay the story portion of the game over again?
No.
No.
So this is
And
actually
WoW, absolutely not, and probably any game, probably absolutely not.
this is actually a good segue.
I'm more about like like interacting with other
Oh,
people
clear.
and like playing competitively or playing a ranked mode or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's me.
This is a great segue into the conversation that I actually wanted to have next. And this is the conversation around what actually makes a game replayable to you. what are the in-game factors that you like the most that make it replayable? And I think that we should break this into two sections, because I think that when you look at a competitive online game or a social online game like WoW or like Hearthstone or anything like that, I think you have to separate that from like a single player RPG, because the replayability in those games and the hooks that bring you back are so different.
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't think that it's comparable. But to start
No.
with like an online competitive multiplayer game, is it the competition alone? Like, is that enough? Is it the social interaction? Is it the ever-changing meta? Is it the matchmaking? Like, what is it?
It's it's everything you just said. I mean, matters a particular genre, and MOBAs. That's what brings me back. New characters. I always go back to League. I like to get back on League to like see the 10 new characters that came out. It's like cool to me to get my ass whooped by them because I don't know what the hell they're doing, and then I'm like, oh, I would get the hell off this game.
Yeah, it's definitely like the meta and like the ever changing landscape. You know what I mean? Like nothing's ever the same for too long. With like a MOBA specifically, you know what I mean? Like League, you know what I mean? Every League patch, things change like pretty drastically. Like one hero can go from being a piece of shit to being like a god, and this item changes, that item changes. They rearrange the jungle, they add things to the jungle, they do this, they do that. You know what I mean? It's never like stagnant for too long. Like once you start to get used to something, everything changes. They have to relearn what's good and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I enjoy. I enjoy like the ever changing landscape, and then like obviously the competition against other people, because like that's, you know what I mean, that's how that's how I have fun with games.
Yep. For MOBAs, that's exactly the same for me as well.
Yeah,
Now I know we don't all we went through, mostly me and McNeil went through our battle arena. What the hell are those games even
Battle
called?
Royale.
Battle Royale.
Right? Yeah.
Now, what brings you back to that shit?
Competition.
Yeah,
Getting
the
that chicken
competition.
dinner, bro. You know?
Yeah, the old battle arenas.
That's all that is, you know. But I'm sitting here going through my Steam library, and this is like the best way I'm sitting here to sit here and decide why I, would or wouldn't. You know, BioShock, great game. Would I go back and play it? Yes. Will I go back and play it? No. You know, maybe 20 years from now, if I have, if I still have Steam around, you know, if I still have access to this library. I really enjoyed the Darksiders games.
Have Epic.
I really enjoyed the Darksiders games. Would I go back and play them? No. You know, it's the games you find yourself going back to, or for me, are competitive games.
Yeah, I like that matchmaking. I have to talk about Halo 3 because this is an episode of the podcast, and I would feel weird if I didn't bring it up. But I feel like, you know, in Halo 3 they had this matchmaking ladder, and this is built into like a lot of games. But you know, when you would rank up, if you would win a game, you would rank up, especially like in the early stages. If you won one game, you would rank up. It was pretty easy. But as you went further and further up, you had to win like something like 10 in a row to actually rank up. It was really, really hard to do. And striving to do that and like achieve that next level of rank, whether it was to become like a brigadier or a general or a captain or a corporal or whatever it was, and get that little badge next to your name, it was a great feeling. And you feel like you really put the work in and the time in to become better than your peers that were playing the game as well.
Yeah, nothing like going to that lobby and seeing you were the highest rank in there.
Yeah. That's one thing that battle royales do not have, which we have discussed before. I mean, we don't really play them anymore, so they may have implemented it since the last time I've played it. But like, I
think Fortnite has some sort of ranked something, but
yeah. But I mean, there's other games that have the ranks of it. I mean, the Call of Duty,
PUBG Mobile does have a ranking system.
Oh, it does. Okay.
I don't know if they incorporated it into the PC or not, but
yeah, League.
I played League for 3 years straight just to try to get into gold. Yeah. I don't know if I ever really achieved it.
I never played League for rank. No, I probably have less than 10 ranked games on League.
I never really played it for ranked either.
I got into League because Ben and Montleone told me to get on League one day. We were sitting hanging out in the basement hanging out. And I got on to play it with my friend. I like playing.
Yeah, you never really got into MOBAs. I mean, you played it. You like playing it with us, but other than that,
what's nice about a game like that? I think Dave touched on it on a game like a MOBA, or at least League of Legends in particular. It's deep enough that you can sit there and invest a ton of time into learning the game, and there's always more to learn. And then once you feel like you have a good grasp on it, it changes on you, and that is fun.
Yeah. The moment you get bored, you just switch to a new character or try a different lane, switch to another position. Yeah, there's plenty of replay, but value there.
It's a great style of game. I mean
that's also been a gripe with us as well. Is
that's true?
That it switches up too frequently.
Old.
It just takes too
picky motherfuckers, aren't we?
It's too much time and too much focus.
Yeah,
it's a lot. You could spend so much time in that game and essentially make no progress.
As you get older, what's nice about HOTS is that at most you're in it for 20 minutes. You know,
that's what I love about it.
Or half an hour if you're really pushing it. For us as adults, you know, life is just in the way far too much to sit down and play League, consecutive games of League, and just devote 3 or 4 hours of undivided attention to your computer screen. It just can't happen anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah, I feel like even as we get older, I'll try to explain this the best I can. Like when you're younger, you can use a game like League or a Battle Royale to get that sense of growth and accomplishment that you wouldn't get in the real world, because you're just like in high school. Like, what are you really achieving besides like getting B's in your classes and like not doing your homework? Like, it's basically all you're doing, right? Like, you might be playing a sport and getting a little bit of achievement there, but it's not like really that great because like everybody just plays a sport, right? I feel like when you get older, you get that sense of accomplishment like through life itself, with your career or your family or whatever else you're working on, like the show. And like you really don't need that, or at least for me, like I just don't need that outlet anymore. I don't want to achieve a ranking in a game anymore. I just don't feel the drive.
I just beat Final Fantasy IX, and you guys heard me talk about it 20 million times already. Did I play it at work? Yeah. Did I spend 70 hours playing the game? Yeah. But did I get a sense of accomplishment out of beating Ozma? A little bit.
Yeah.
But if I was 8 or 9 years old, it would have been like,
oh yeah,
yeah, I'm going over to Ben's house to rub it in his face. You know, but not anymore. You know, it was just like, well, check that off. You know, did I get my money's worth?
I'm not giving. I don't like look down at people who do get that feeling from it still.
Oh yeah.
But I think if you examine it very closely, I think that it's the people who do get that feeling. It's kind of just a mirage.
We're just not getting that dopamine release that we used to get.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Matt was saying, like Halo. When Halo and those games were coming out, when he's talking about the age thing and fulfillment and through life rather than that kind of stuff. What the hell else were you doing? You know, you had your Halo friends. Nobody could drive when that game came out. Nobody could go to work. Nobody, you didn't work. What are you doing after school? You know exactly what I'm doing after school.
Doing what I do every day. Yeah.
Play Halo for like 20 hours. Drinking Mountain Dew and Doritos. Eating Doritos and shit.
What about a single player experience? What makes that replayable? I feel like this might actually even be a more interesting conversation, because I think that there's a lot more genres in this. Like you have your RPGs like a Skyrim, where maybe it's like the atmosphere. You also have like a roguelike type of game where maybe you just come back for the variability. Variability? Am I saying that right? Why does that not sound right to me?
It sounds like you said it like 2 words.
Variability.
Yeah, variability.
Variability. There you go.
Even when I played Skyrim, I never completed.
If I'm telling
Skyrim,
you how to pronounce words, you're in trouble, man.
It just wasn't coming off the tongue right. I don't know why. Sorry, guys, Josh.
Just for me, you guys could be very different, but like I replayed Skyrim a couple times. But when I say replay Skyrim, I never replayed Skyrim start to finish, all the side quests, explored everything I did the first time through.
Yeah,
you know. Did I make other characters? Yeah. Did I choose to, side with the Empire instead of, the Nords? You could just very obvious forks in the road in terms of story in the games that you do want to go back and do differently. But I just never went through and like, Matt talked on the podcast a little bit ago on a different one about those those gems. Did I want to go back and recollect all those gems? Hell no.
Hell yeah, get
no.
them gems, boy. No,
that first time through, I was like, I want to go into every cave. What was that place underground that was like almost as large as the entire map itself? Where the Dwemer were and all that. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
don't remember the names of anything.
Yeah. I wanted to explore all that. Not the second time through, it was like, I know I ain't gonna get anything out of that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point you brought up. I mean, I feel like that's a whole class of games. Anything with like an RPG element in modern day, it seems like has that replayability in player choice, whether it's story player choice or the way you build the character in the game itself. So like Josh was saying, like Skyrim in particular, you were right. Like I played that. I mean, I think all of us probably sunk a lot of hours into that game, but obviously I tried not to do the same thing twice if I really didn't have to. Like really clear objectives of things that you wanted to get done on another playthrough. Like, well, I'm just gonna go to the college or be like a mage, and like that's it.
Yeah,
like, I'm
exactly.
That guy.
I'm gonna do the assassin shit.
Right. You never played it to completion. It just, I mean, you know what happens. You're like, oh well, I'm strong enough now. Like, I feel fulfilled. Let's be somebody else now for a little bit.
Yeah.
In an RPG, I think I find myself going back to make the choices that I didn't make in the first playthrough. Like the big time story splits, like something like The Witcher. Like I almost can point to, like, whenever I'm playing a game, like a heavy RPG, a big open world, I can almost point to the decision that I know, like as soon as I make it, I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to go back and play that again and figure out what happens if I make the other one.
Did you play the old original Dragon Age Origins?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Was Origins the DLC, or was it just
It was
Dragon
just
Age
it was just the title.
Yeah, it's just Origins.
Remember through this, like the third, like maybe halfway or 3/4 through that game, you were collecting an army to fight that final boss, right? And you could choose who you did or didn't want in that final fight with you. Like for me, I was like, I'm going back to the Dwarven place. I want those golems. I don't care about anything else, but somebody else could be like, I want, I don't remember. That's a specific thing that I remember from that. But anybody who's played it knows what I'm talking about. You had to pick a particular garrison or troops to go into that fight with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to just go along with this whole RPG.
You could also,
there are obvious avenues that you can choose to do differently, besides just, well, I'm not going to do the companion skill.
So as I'm observing this whole conversation, the main thing for me that I'm getting out of this is story is important for replayability and multiplayer, a revolving multiplayer where things are changing. We're getting patches, we're getting different weapons, perhaps meta's changing, maybe a little bit of change to a map and a MOBA. So those are the two that are sticking out the most for me, is a good story that we can play, or you can deviate in the story decisions. And then there's also the like the RTS. The RTS is just that. Those one I played the fuck out of those games. You know what I mean? Like Total War. The Empire's one and the Medieval one. Like I've played so many put so many hours in that. That's just like those games have a lot of replayability because I don't know why.
You don't know why? I can tell you. I mean, in those specific games, what they do is they do a really good job. I shouldn't say that. People bash on the fucking AI all the time and that, but they do enough that you can build like a competent world around you where like relations between nations, the same thing with like Civilization, where like the leaders had personalities and how they interact with one another, and when you mix them up and get them into different situations, it plays out differently every time, which is really entertaining.
Yes. Okay, there you go. It's changes every time. We like to see different things, different stories. We like to see different factions in an area taken over, and then oh, I'm gonna beat their ass.
Right.
Speaking of AI's influence on replayability, I'm thinking of a game like Dark Souls or like Bloodborne. Some of those games, just the sense of achievement that you get from. I mean, I've probably beaten Dark Souls 5 or 6 times, and just I love going through as a different class, mastering that class, and just stomping through the game. Now that I know where all the enemies are, I think that's a really specific type of game, but I think just playing against the AI, not worrying about the story elements, like that was enough for me in those games to come back.
I think
Yeah,
no matter
well-
what, you're gonna, charm is just gonna drip away every time you do it.
Yeah.
No matter
Well,
what.
you're also playing it probably on harder levels as well, Matt. So you get that sense of achievement.
Yeah.
Well,
You can turn that
sometimes
into
on Dark Souls you really can't, but
challenges. You can
Oh,
really
there's
create replayability for yourself as
Yeah.
as the consumer.
That's true.
Anyway, even if there isn't what's considered replayability value in the game, it's up to you. For
yeah.
for a game that doesn't even give you like what we talked about for Skyrim and The Witcher.
I mean, look at it. I think Minecraft's a perfect example of that.
Yes.
You could play that game for 10 minutes.
The builders.
I mean, that's really just what you make it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm
Josh?
looking at some of the.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
when you said that, I thought like Final Fantasy VII is what jumped into my mind. Granted, like I really enjoyed the story, but there's people that play that game so much it obviously isn't for the story anymore. It's like they'll do like a level 1 playthrough where like the cloud stays level 1 the entire game and they beat the game. Things like that, like crazy shit, making up an element to the game that obviously nobody intended for it to be played like that. But it's apparently fun and it's enough to bring people back and play it ad nauseum.
I'm looking at some of these bullets, and I can't think of a game. Just looking at some of these bullets, that the social aspect of the game has brought me back in itself. League, no. Did I go back and play Modern Warfare so I could sit in a lobby and have my ear raped by a bunch of people? No. But like to go back on what we said about the WoW thing.
Yeah,
It's a
community.
very, that's a big advertisement for these people who are excited about classic WoW. I think they'll be let down, like I said, but looking at this bullet, I think sociability and community is a big thing for replayability in a MOBA or an MMO genre.
I look at Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah.
And Ben, I don't want to speak for you, but I would go as far to say that you probably went back to Final Fantasy 11 for the nostalgia, but you probably stayed for the community that was there.
Yeah, it was a combination of both. The nostalgia was a driver when you're leveling, and then the community is like once you start to get towards and you have to do higher up stuff, which I really never did. Wolf could speak on that more, but you need the community in order to do the NM, not NMs, BCNMs,
stuff like that. But
yeah. Story parts of the story, you needed the community, and you had to have people working together. They're getting on at the same thing with WoW.
I think it was a little bit more. I know maybe this is what you were speaking to, Matt, as well when we played on that private server. But a game like Final Fantasy XI, I remember a lot of time was spent just like fucking off in the capital cities, or like we did the fishing thing for a while, which was pretty funny. Like there was things that weren't necessarily like playing the game that everyone expects you to play the game, where you're literally just interacting, having fun, and it was fun interacting with the community. Cause,
that's just because you're with your friends, and some
outsiders too, right?
Yeah, some silly guy comes up and starts fishing with you.
They eventually become your friend, right? In that
I
kind of
remember
scenario.
I remember Matt was in Port Sandoria and he was fishing, and I was like in the area for some reason. I walked by and like Matt's having a conversation with the dude like fishing,
of course,
through chat. Yeah.
I used to ask them like
how's it going?
I used to ask them how the fish were biting and like how the weather was, and then the big boat would come in, and I'd be like, yeah, that's just what we need, a bunch of tourists. Huh?
I know you were.
I loved it.
I
loved it. I was cracking myself up.
But that's one thing I don't see on a bullet here is RP.
Yeah,
Look at how popular GTA has become in the recent months due to just the RP factor.
True.
Yeah, that is true. I really like role playing. I
Rust
really
for Ben.
Yeah.
Did you go back to Rust so you could pound a tree with a rock?
No, I did not. I went back
No.
for it. That's a good one for the social factor.
Yeah.
Rust, Reign of
DayZ
Kings,
was
whatever.
a big one for me.
DayZ.
Now that I think about it, screw
Mhm.
me.
VR chat.
Yeah.
That's strictly the social factor. Like that's a driver there.
Yeah, right.
The memes.
I don't think that replayability is that important to me in terms of buying a game like it is for Wolf. Like I have over 200 games in my library, and there's games that I'm satisfied with and will never go back to. Alien Isolation,
You could just
I
leave
haven't
it.
beaten
Leave
it.
be.
Yeah, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, the
Have I
horror
wasted money on-
genre might not. I don't think that hinges on replayability as much, because once you're scared of something, if you see it again, you're not
There
going to
you
be
go.
scared again.
Yeah.
True.
That's an outlier for sure.
But I wouldn't
probably
consider
one
it
of
a
the few.
waste.
No, I wouldn't either. I think that I really like games that it's just like I don't know. I'm fucking old, I guess. I like fucking having an experience and then like setting it down and being like, then like I hear the soundtrack or something later on and I'm like, wow, I don't need to even play that. Like it just brings me back to that moment when I was playing it, and you get
I think
those emotions. You know what I mean?
Twitch is a very good outlet for that particular thing. Could save you some money,
Yep.
possibly your own time.
Watch somebody
in
else
one
play it.
instance or another.
Get
Some games
their
come out and I'm
emotions.
perfectly fine. Like I bought God of War, didn't play it, didn't care. Watched my brother played it and was fine just watching him play.
Yeah.
I never played it, but I kind of just like experienced the game through his playthrough.
So this is going to be my last question on replayability, and I think that it's the most important one. I think that like our whole conversation is just hit my head off the mic here. Going to like been leading us to this point, but is replayability a sign of quality? I think not in a genre that's an outlier, like not like in a horror game, but like an RPG or a competitive game or an MMO. Does high replayability always mean that it's a high product quality? And, in the same vein, does low replayability always mean that it's a low quality?
My opinion, no. I think it adds value to the product for sure. But will it convince me to buy a game? No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think
it's genre.
having replayability doesn't necessarily make your game quality, but just by having it. But I think a lot of the quality games do have replayability.
Yes.
Just because you have it doesn't mean there is quality, but the ones that are quality usually have it.
It's dessert, man.
There you go.
It is. It's like that extra. You say like dessert. Yeah, it is. It's like the cherry on top of the sundae. Like you could have an absolute masterpiece, and if you take the time to put in whether it's story elements or a way to build your character differently or different ways the game interacts with itself and you can experience it differently. I mean, it's a world of difference.
Yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up, and I'm thinking of a game like Skyrim again, but it's like when a game has the little things that make the atmosphere seem to come alive, or it makes the NPCs seem like a little bit more real than its competitors, I feel like that's what really brings you back to a game.
Yep. Yeah, immersion is definitely a huge factor in replayability. Like you want to get back to those moments where you're immersed in the game. The soundtrack's got you going. The communication, like you said, with NPCs, if it's good and the story's keeping you going, and you can go this way with it, then yeah.
In recent years, with the streaming service coming on board, I think having a game being just popular, regardless of the game's particular replay value, if some people will look at replay value as what will give me the biggest fan base, what will bring people in to watch me too. I find that might be a little less off our main path here in terms of but for some people, like look at Summit and playing PUBG when it came out. He hated it, but it brought in his viewers, and he kept going back to play that up until he just broke, So
that's definitely
breaking
a different topic
You're
there.
having
Like
a
that
Ben moment right
replayability to, like, obviously there's people who are in it to make money, to make a living off of this, playing it because other people want to see it be played. Yeah, I don't think. And you mentioned a game like PUBG. I don't know what any of you say. It was a great game. Was it made because of its replayability? Do you think that might be, in a sense, probably one of the only reasons it was successful, because it did have some replayability, and surprisingly.
Was it a complete game? No. Was it fun at times? Yeah.
Yeah, there was times where it was fun. If they could have given a better service, then I think it would have had a much better chance.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If that game didn't have like the bugs and the server issues and all that different stuff, the
I had a
core
lot of fun on
concept
it.
of that game's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how, like, you know what I mean? They didn't have the resources to fully support it or whatever. And they weren't able to take care of bugs and stuff. That game and like with everything solved would be a really incredible game.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
If everything worked properly, it would be incredible.
I think that they were willing to skimp on their operations because they were the first, and they were willing to play around with it to say, like, hey, what can we get away with? You know what I mean? And we can get away with anything because there's nothing else to fucking play. But then it bit them in the ass because, like you said, if they were providing a better service and they didn't have all these issues, I think it could potentially maybe not be as popular as Fortnite, but be a peg down from it.
Right. Well, and like whenever you like come up with a new genre game, if you're like the first mover, there's always going to be companies behind you that are going to imitate, copy, and improve on your product.
Yeah.
It happens with every game genre. So like you have the first mover advantage, but like eventually, like if you don't really stay on top of it, someone's going to come and take your like concept of a game, like your genre, and improve on it. It's always happened. Especially with battle royales.
You got to come out of the gates with something really hot if you're going to avoid that.
You got to like lock in your player base, because if you don't, like League of Legends, incredible job of doing that.
It's like the only game that I can think of that really has something like that.
I don't know how they managed to do it the way they did, but they really monopolized it and cornered the mobile market for the most part. And
Smite's a good example of a failure attempt at that.
Well, here's the storm Smite. There's so many.
Smite. There's so many things. Like, I mean, Dota 2, obviously.
Yeah.
There's space for Dota 2, but there's no question that League is the heavy hitter.
Yeah. I mean, I would even say that. I mean, you could. I don't even know if I want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But you could even consider the Dota 2 like semi-failed. I mean, it's a very popular game. It makes a lot of money. So in that aspect, no, it didn't fail. I'm sure Valve's happy with it. But I'm sure when they made that, they thought they were going to give League a run for its money.
I remember when that shit was coming out, everyone's like, all right, half of League's fucking player base is going to be gone. And hell no, it didn't happen. I mean, it might have affected them for a couple weeks, a month. But then
it may have even added to
maybe
community.
That'd be right.
Hearthstone's a huge. Dota has a huge community. I just don't know who these people are.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's putting all the money forward for all the tournaments and stuff?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't know a single person that actually plays that game, but apparently they play.
Hearthstone's the other example that I can think of. They came out with a digital card game and just blew the pants off of everything else. Yeah, like even Magic's tried to come back and make that their own digital game.
I mean, Magic competes in the space, but there's nobody that has unseated it. Like,
it's kind of like they're kind of like Dota.
Right. They are kind of like Dota.
Yeah.
Well,
they're making money, but they ain't making that much money.
I think Hearth is outcompeted. Obviously MTG is trying to get in on this digital card game thing, but if WoW were to start their like a tangible physical card game, there's no way they would outshine MTG.
Oh no.
There was a Warcraft trading card game. It just didn't.
Exactly.
It wasn't big.
But will MTG's version, even though that it is the biggest card game, maybe you could argue that Pokemon's up there, but outshine Hearthstone digitally? No way. So like there's varying factors there. That
Yeah, like WoW had like actual physical cards, and like it died, and literally the only reason people actually fucking bought the things because there were like loot cards that you could get that would like give you items in WoW,
Of course.
Tiger and shit. And that's like the only thing people cared about. Like the game was like the card game, nobody gave a flying fuck about. They just wanted the goddamn loot in WoW.
Yeah, that's funny. That's really funny, actually.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And like the Spectral Tiger mount is like it's worth like a shitload of money because like they don't print the cards anymore and you can't get it. You know what I mean? Like the code on the card, they only printed so many of them, you can't get it anymore. So people like go ape shit. Like you know what I mean? It's worth lots of money or lots of WoW gold, whatever way you want to shake it.
Does anybody have another point they want to make on replayability? I think we got a little bit off track there, but just before we move down to the news section here.
Yeah. Story. For your boy, that's all that matters.
I don't think I can add anything to this conversation.
Ow.
All right.
Yeah, dude.
So this first one, EA struggles with the perception that they are the bad guys. This is pretty good. So Matt Bilby, the VP of Strategic Growth at EA, recently has said that, and I quote here, 25 years at EA, and I still struggle with the external perception that we're just a bunch of bad guys. We love making and playing games. Unfortunately, when we make mistakes on games, the world knows about it because it's of a size and scale. EA's had a year full of mishaps. You know, they've had Anthem company-wide layoffs, and they've also had that recent surprise mechanics blunder, which is the best. Me personally, I think like I get what Matt Bilby is saying here, and I get that it probably is tough to bring passion to work every day when a significant portion of the gaming community pretty much hates you. And I use the word hates. I don't think that they dislike them. I think that people really do just hate EA. But I think EA has to understand, and this is something that we've talked about before, they're bringing a business aspect to video games, and they're trying to monetize these games in such a way. And I understand why they're doing it. I know that they want to have the best financial year that they can, year in and year out. But like video games at the end of the day are a form of art, and you can't just monetize this and make them into these digital products that like everybody wants to do, because they're not just like this commodity that can just be like bought and sold without care. And I think that that's like the thing that they always miss.
They're just a bad guy, straight up.
No, I am in agreement with Matt. They do miss that. I mean, it's pretty simple to understand. I don't know why they can't get it. I don't like the guy's name, Matt Bilbay or whatever. I don't even like his name.
I think the biggest issue is like a lot of the big companies have just like lost the connection to the consumer, and because they're too worried about, you know, like the microtransactions or, you know, a constant revenue stream from their games. Like they're focused on the business aspect, and they kind of like lost the touch. You know what I mean? Like video game companies are so much more like business oriented now, and like focused on like returning money to shareholders, blah, like all the AAA companies, of course. I'm not talking about it, but they're so focused on that. I think like a lot, and even like the people that are in charge of them now, like in the past, like the people that were in charge of them were like developers or created the games, or like real, you know what I mean, really into them. And now I feel like it's more like you're getting people that are more business oriented, like that are at the top, and they don't have the same passion that the people used to have that were in those positions. I think that's a big thing.
We've go over this so many times in other podcasts. I mean, it's just a sad fact that it is a business now. There's money to be made, and that these people don't get it because they went to school to make to build a business. They didn't, you know, create the lore, or they didn't create the game mechanics or the soundtrack. They're fucking there to make money. Matt Bilbay, I hate that. He is there to make money. He don't care about Anthem's story or the gameplay or anything like that. Give me a fucking break.
I don't know what the salaries are for some of these people, but I think that the role as a community manager needs to be more important. They just need to have more say in what goes on in the conference room than what the next bundle and the microtransaction is going to be. What do these people want here? And it'll go right back to your replay value. You'll keep people coming back, and if you're giving them, why even have forums?
That's a great point.
Don't get me started on the forums.
Got to get active.
These community
Gotta get on there.
these community managers take so much shit on these forums when a game comes out and it doesn't please their audience, and they're just there, trying to just quell this fire on, we'll use the failures as an example, but they're the ones there listening to the people who, the game is being sold to in the end. And I think that, just to make my point, is that a community manager, I think, is far more important than a PR guy when you're coming out with a video game.
That's a good. I mean, you say that, and I agree. I bet people definitely overlook that aspect of it, and they're probably underappreciated and disrespected in a lot of cases. But honestly, the more I'm around this kind of these stories, whoever they're getting to speak on behalf of the company, in this guy in particular, I'm pretty empathetic to him, and I kind of understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there for 25 years, and 25 years ago, EA was not a villain. They were not the bad guy. It was I imagine it was probably a completely different company back then, and it's probably really hard for this individual who's been there for so long to come to terms with. Probably in the last 10 years is probably a safe estimate where they've really become vilified and started using like these terrible practices and essentially cornered or monopolized the sports game market, where they essentially dominate the three of the largest sports in the world. And I mean, they're essentially responsible for merging, the two of the biggest forms of entertainment in the world, video games and sports. I mean, this is what they mainly did coming in, like FIFA, NHL, Madden. Like, these are huge. They have tons of people love football, love soccer, and when you're essentially monopolizing the market, and then it's just like, honestly, their downfall here, monopolizing the market and not building a quality product, something different every year like they had been in the past. Probably when this guy took over, like, you saw some real innovation in like the early 2000s of like Madden football games. I remember them. They were great from year to year, like 2004, 2006. Like, fantastic times to be a Madden fan.
NHL too.
Yeah.
When
NHL?
you used to be able, the first year they came out with using the stick to control using the stick to control the stick.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
it was
true, yeah.
I mean, it was revolutionary. I mean, it just felt so good whenever you used it, and they really built that
Immersion.
out.
Right.
I mean, you can do some really cool stuff with that now. Yeah, I mean, to your point, they have done a good job.
Yeah, no, and I didn't, sorry, Matt Bilbay. I didn't realize 25 years, but here's the thing, Matt. Here's the thing, Maddie Bilbay. You gotta accept when you're if you're there during the heyday when shit's good and you're fucking changing everything that Wolf was speaking to, you're making all these changes that are great for these sports video games. Like, you got to be able to fucking accept when you're shit in the bed.
That's true. Yeah.
I just wish that they would quit treating games like they're just some form of digital software, when there's so much more than that, and they've always been more than that. And I just don't get why they can't. I mean, I don't even know why I say that. They definitely know that, but they just don't care. I mean, they honestly understand what video games are. They're not stupid. They make like billions of dollars. They're really smart
about money. That's all it is. It's money.
Money.
They're doing the same thing that Activision did with Destiny. and that both Destiny games and Anthem went through this problem is that they get so Anthem had 7-year window from the time that they, there was an article about this, they said, and they go through like 3 or 4 years of just writing and coming up with what they want to do, building a foundation on the game, and then they go into a boardroom or they do a test build. The big wig comes down and says, well, I don't like this. And then they start from scratch again. It happened with both Destiny games. It happened with Anthem. And I think that they're, like I said, with the community managers and the people who are designated the jobs to, like, let them do their job, let them make the game. I think that these guys in these suits have way too much control. It's their business, right? They paid the money out to these people. They hired them on. They said, I want to make this game, right? That's fair to give them that point. But what's the point of going out and hiring, somebody like Martin O'Donnell to do, or is it McDonald to do a soundtrack and then have him spend all this time and money on it for them to turn around and say, well, I don't like this, and then make them restart. Like, you don't have an infinite window, and it goes on to, which is a whole nother topic, is this crunch crap. I think they just need
I
to
don't want to
let them
get.
make the game.
I don't want to get into crunch.
They just need to let these developers work on the game.
Crunch bar sounds good though.
Yeah, it does.
They just can't allow a reset halfway through a development cycle happen on these games, and they know that they can get away with it because we keep buying them. Either way.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's why we gotta communicate.
Well, we gotta hit the forums. I think Ben said it.
Hit the forums, get in there, let them know how we feel.
Make
a change in this world.
And I don't really think that EA's audience are people like the 5 of us that pay attention and look at these articles and watch a game through its development cycle. Their target audience are the 8-year-old's mom and dad who go into Target a week before Christmas and say, oh,
Madden.
My son said Battlefield in a sentence one time. He'll buy, and you can't count for these millions and millions of numbers and that be all of them, right? But I feel like the EA's target audience just isn't us anymore.
Kind of like Fortnite.
They know they don't need to
audience.
satisfy us for the game to be like
That
publisher said that Black Ops 4 was a failure in terms of
Well,
money
I think
made.
we've talked about this before. EA is just so popular that, and so is Call of Duty, that it doesn't matter if 20% of your audience hates you, if 80% are going to buy it regardless,
Exactly.
and you make enough money. It's just the numbers are too great. The audience is too big.
The industry is too. That's what we talk about so much. The industry is just.
It's way too big. Yeah. But let's move down to this next news story here. So the Nintendo Switch Lite was just announced. It's releasing on September 20th, which is the same day as the new Link's Awakening. The Switch Lite's going to be priced at $200, which is $100 cheaper than the original Switch. It's a bit smaller and lighter than the original. The Joy-Con controllers do not detach, and you cannot hook it up to a TV. So this is like a purely handheld gaming system. What are your thoughts on this system? Would you consider buying it at all? I mean, it's going to sell well, or
It's great that. Go ahead. Wolf.
I'm sorry.
I've talked enough.
That's dumb.
It's a
All right,
Switch.
let's move on.
It's a Switch with no Switch.
Yeah,
You gotta call it
that
a
is
Switch.
funny. That is funny. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, like for $100 price point difference, like give me the thing that does everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like you're spending. It's not like you're spending $1,000 and the light version's $200. It's $100.
Yeah, I don't
The
know.
light version doesn't even connect to your TV. It does
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
You
Oh, it
can't even
doesn't?
use it. No, you can't even use the
Yeah.
dock.
Matt just
for
said that. I just said that. It doesn't
Oh,
switch.
well, no.
I just
Oh,
said
good.
that.
I'm gonna switch you.
I
up.
mean, there's no replaceable. There's no replaceable dongles on it either. You can't.
No.
And
No,
I've
you
already
replace your
noticed.
dongles.
I've already noticed the
I'm out.
joystick on my left dongle start to wear. So to me, it's like, oh, I don't gotta worry
On the
about it.
on the Joy-Con.
Okay, yeah, whatever you want. What was on
What's
Wii
a
was the
what's a
dongle. was
You're
the
just
Wii
all
the
about the
dongle.
dongles.
The little wiggly.
Joy-Cons. You can't replace it, and I've already noticed mine go.
Yeah.
You know, so here you are, you buy a $200 thing, and you have a button go.
Well, I've heard this is supposed to be a little bit sturdier.
They say.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm...
When I look at that, all I think about is Miller Lite.
Was literally in my garage with one of my brother's friends today, and he asked, "Oh, you have a Switch?" You know, because I was talking about playing at mine in my place of work, and he's like, "Would you buy this one?"
I hope no one at your work listens to this show.
I doubt it, but I said no. I would buy the full price one for sure, 100%. Like Dave said, it's $100.
I mean,
For me, $100 difference, like it's crazy. All the utility you lose for $100 price difference, it makes no sense to me.
Trade in some of the crap you don't use anymore.
I actually think it's going to sell pretty well.
It's gonna sell pretty well to the little kids.
It'll absolutely still sell. It'll still sell. It's just for me, it's stupid.
I agree. I mean, I have a Switch, so I would never get the Switch Lite. But like, I think for the people that were on the fence and thinking like, do I really need a Switch? Probably not. It's $300. Now that it's I think 200 is a lot more reasonable.
Yeah,
from a consumer standpoint.
This could have been good news.
And also think about all the parents, middle class parents who are like, oh, I'm not getting the Switch; it's too fucking expensive.
Oh yeah,
and then they see that and then they see the $200 or what is it? It's $100.
200, yeah.
Okay, right. So they see that drop and they're like, oh shit, my kid wanted that real bad. Let me grab this. It's a gimmick.
Yeah, like to me, it's stupid, but don't take that as me saying it's not going to sell.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not going to sell. It's just
we're talking about gaming.
Yeah, whenever
and Nintendo.
Yeah, well, whenever you're like an adult and you can buy your own shit, like I'm just going to spend like $100 to me to buy the better thing that has more utility. I'm buying it.
Yeah,
like I don't even think about going to the shittier version.
Well, they might be coming out with
stupid.
They might be coming out with the Pro pretty soon, so you can just wait for that.
There you go.
That made it sound like a trick. Like they're trying to trick parents. Like, oh, it's the Nintendo Switch.
Ben is really big on companies like trying to pull a fast one.
Well, how shitty would that be? Like your kid, like it's your birthday coming up, and you get the Switch, but it's not the real Switch. It's like the Switch Lite.
Yeah.
And
they're like, what the hell? I can't even put this on the TV. Daddy.
Yeah, and then you're like, this isn't. And then the kid's freaking out, like they can't do what their friends can do with their Switch.
Oh yeah, they're like the lower.
Yeah,
they're the light boys.
It's like when the Game Boy Color came out. And people were
I guess
the Game Boy.
I guess I was gonna say, was there a Game Boy Light?
Kids are gonna get beat up over this.
That's what I'm gonna say. They're gonna bring their Switch Lite to school and like get bullied for being poor or something.
Can we do something about this, guys?
I don't know.
Hey, I mean, it's more adorable at least, so it won't break during the bullying.
I don't know.
The girls might get props.
We might need like a task force, like a team led by a very strong individual.
Let's get the people that ice cream company.
I'm out of commission. Sorry, Wolf. I'm out of commission. I only have one leg right now. But
okay. Well,
I come out of.
I like to expensive, and it is good that they're going to drop the price. We'll give them that. I mean, I spent over $500 on my whole Switch deal when I walked out again. So I don't know what you spent, Maddie. But for the screen protector and the carrying case and, the rubber I got the rubber little things for it. And it's all, you want $60 a pop for a game too.
I know.
Yeah. And
you're spending a lot.
And after the dongles, you're out of.
I'm looking it up now.
I like to live.
I
like to live in.
It's killing me.
It's just got the word dong. It's just got dong in it, so that's why that's why you're looking it up.
I like to live in this world where all of Ben's conspiracies are correct, and like we release this show, and like the big wigs at Nintendo hear it, and they're like, "Shit!" Like Ben's all over us. Like we've got to redo all the marketing for this console. Like,
and I'm in a weakened state right now. They could take me out.
We could.
I gotta be watching out, dude.
You have Cora to protect you at least.
That's true. She does bark pretty loud.
Hey, let's move on to this last story of the day here. So, hope maybe you won't hate this guy as much, Ben. Leonard Boyarsky, the creative director at Obsidian, he has recently come out and stated in an interview that their new game, The Outer Worlds, which is an RPG, will be political, but will not be politically charged. So he said that they're being very careful to not lecture players about its themes, But his description of those themes, which include power and how power is used against people who don't have it, does seem to be very political at its core. So this is like really me nitpicking for this story, but this kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And the reason I say this, that on the one hand, I feel like I really applaud this statement because we've talked a lot about how we don't want any politics in games, like at all. Like we want zero. And I still feel that way. But on the other hand, I feel like coming out and explicitly stating this, like, no, like there's no politics in this game. Like we're working really hard to keep it out. It just seems, and maybe this is just like the state that I was in when I read this, it seems like it's being used as like a marketing point for this game. Like, hey, come buy this. Like, we're not political. Like, come on in. I feel like it's just as bad as putting the politics in. Like, just let the game and the story speak for itself.
Right.
I think putting politics in and then coming out and saying like, no, we don't do politics. It's just a different side of the same coin to me. I just didn't appreciate it. PR.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's PR. I think that like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's an RPG. There's gonna be, is it? I don't know much about this game. Is it is it a medieval or is it?
No, it's space.
Okay, well, yeah, there's gonna be factions, there's gonna be different planets maybe fighting each other or some shit. Like, of course, there's gonna be political aspects to it. It's like, why the fuck even say anything about it?
Right.
Like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's a role playing game. It's a story. It's gonna have a fucking story to it.
Yeah, what I don't like the quote, like him saying it will be political, but it won't be politically charged. I'll believe that when I see it.
It just doesn't need to be real world political bullshit.
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
Have it be game in the game's
it's-
politics.
That's
you know?
natural. That's
Yeah.
natural, baby. We all natural
The
around
two
here.
characters
That's natural, baby.
can't look like Donald Trump and like Hillary Clinton, and then you tell me no, it's not politically charged. Don't worry about it. Like no, you can't do that. And who's to? Like Ben said and Dave said, like we'll see it. We'll believe it when we see it. But like, how can you say it's political but not politically charged? Like,
I don't.
Doesn't make sense.
That's not your decision to make. That's
Right.
generally the audience's view of the politics involved here. Like, what are you trying to do with this? Is it really that groundbreaking that you have to like disclose? Like, don't worry, the charge is not enough to offend you.
It's a
Come
weak
buy the game.
charge.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's silly. I like I said, anything the politics of a made up universe, or like I was going towards like in a medieval game, like where you get that Game of Thrones feeling where there's contention between, families or, for the throne or whatever, for planet, whatever. It's like, that's cool. You need that. But don't fucking bring in like shit from our world, damn it.
Yeah, I mean,
In modern times.
I'll even say that I believe him and that he's not going to have any politics or anything. That's great. But I just have already seen the videos popping up of everybody saying like, oh, great. Like, I'm definitely buying this game. Like, can't wait for it to come out. I don't want politics in. Like, let's support this. And I get the standpoint and I even like half-heartedly support it. But there's a part of me that just sees this as being just as bad as putting politics in. I don't like it.
It sounds to me now like it's a marketable coined term.
Yeah.
I agree. Like they talked about it in the boardroom, and then he came out and said it.
Yeah, this won't be the last time we see this.
It was like
it was like everywhere. It was like everywhere too.
Yeah. When Mass Effect Andromeda had that character in it that legit said, "I'm trans," like almost word for word. So you can explain that to me in a sci-fi way that makes sense in the game. Right? Like this character is asexual. Whatever. We don't just. Why do we need to have that term in the game?
Yeah, right. Like it's generally like good writing where these kind of like themes come out. Like if you wanted to make a political game about like the power struggles and that what this guy's gonna do, like you don't come out. People don't walk up and say to you like, "This is a power struggle." Like that's not like how it works.
Right.
That's not story development.
Well, you would just make BioShock.
You don't need to give me political.
And then you get like the best power struggle game.
Right. And nobody was like, "Whoa, we're in the midst of a power struggle."
Yeah. No, I don't remember Andrew Ryan saying that.
I didn't say that.
Keep the political exposition out, all of it. You know, make
I'm
it
in-
make
I'm in
sense within
agreement.
your world.
Yeah, I agree. And like I don't know, I get the weird feeling that like it's gonna be like they're gonna have like an in-game politics or whatever. I get that, but I feel like a lot of a lot of things like they make it like it is the in-game politics, but like it is like transcending real politics. Like you know what I mean? It's like the same things, but with like different characters. You know what I mean? Like they
It's just
portray
it's
real
correlation.
world politics as the game with like different names and different
Yeah,
themes and stuff, but
yeah.
it's still the same underlying. You know what I mean? It's just it's a parallel to what's actually going on. It's just in a different way.
That's what I get when I hear this. They're gonna say there's going to be that inserted into it. I feel like, but they're gonna say like we don't take a stance or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we don't go one way or the other. You know, like I can see that.
Oh, so you think it's more of like a smokescreen?
To me, it's a
Yeah.
stance just saying it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
it's gonna be in there. You know, it's. And I think that like it's actually really fucking good because there is people who are like, I want to get in there for that political stuff, and then there's other people who are like, no, I don't want the political fucking shit. So it's like, okay, it's gonna be political, but it's not politically charged. It's like win-win. They're gonna pull in both of those fucking people, you know?
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, Ben.
Yeah.
It's actually like the perfect message.
Yeah. So
But,
don't buy this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna keep me from buying it or not, but
Nah, I don't know.
if stuff like this keeps coming out, I'm not
Just
gonna
kidding.
I'm not gonna be happy with it.
It's already in.
I don't like when this shit starts coming out. And then I see it on every gaming website and it's the
Yeah.
same message. It just seems so coordinated. I just don't like it. It stinks. Something smells.
They don't need a round of applause
What's that
for.
smell?
They're not
No,
that
they don't.
righteous for coming out
Around
and saying
you.
this. It's,
Yeah, exactly.
It's something that should probably be expected.
You roll your eyes at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
Yeah.
Generally, you try not to bring politics into your workplace as much as possible. I feel like that's the polite thing to do. But
It's like we're trying to escape this garbage
Right.
ass situation that we have with 25 candidates. Like get for fucking
okay.
I agree. Let's wrap the show there. That's a good episode 24. Thanks so much for listening. I said this on the last show as well, but if you listen on iTunes and Spotify, normally we've put our live recording on YouTube. So if you're into that, please watch it there. Also, if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us an iTunes review. It really helps us out. And we also put our gameplay videos on YouTube as well. So just another reason to go check out that channel. But thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And we'll hopefully see you next week.